Hi guys, I'm going to take you through setting up the Swim tables database for the case study. So open up Access, then just create a blank desktop database. I'm going to call mine case study, or let's call it Swim Club. I'm just going to save it in the Documents folder. No. So let me just put it onto the desktop there. Alright, and off we go. Now the interface is a bit tricky at times, but what we're going to do is going to create a couple of tables. Over on the left hand side you can browse between objects. If we've got access to all objects, so there's currently a table that's created for us. In the top here you can switch between the design view. We need to save it first, so let's call it TBL, use a naming convention, and I think the name we called it was TBL Swim Details. Naming conventions are important for file naming and for elements within a solution too, such as variable names, function names and things like that. Okay. So there's our table now. We can toggle between the two views. There's the data sheet that gives you an Excel spreadsheet-like view. At the moment we've only got one field in there, which is an ID. All tables have to have an ID as a minimum. And if we click to the design view, we can see it there. And we can change the field name. In fact, we'll do that now. We'll call it Swimmer ID. And again, the naming convention is important, so that all of our field names in this table will start with the prefix swimmer. Data type for the swimmer IDs is going to be an auto number, so it's a long integer down here you can see, and it auto increments, so every time we add a new record it'll go up by one. Okay, let's start building the table. We can build it, I think it's easier to build it in design view. And if we have a look at what we had on our table view here, we had to have swimmer ID, auto number, so that's all done. It's required and it's unique. Swimmer name first, swimmer name family, swimmer gender. So I'm just going to go and throw those in there. And I've copied that, so I can just paste it in next time. And it's swimmer name first. And it's a short text, and I think the size we set for it was 20. Now we don't have to validate it in the database. We can do that in an input form as well. But we'll set that up. Swimmer name family. Same thing, use camel case, and again it's a short text, and I think we had what size did we say for that? 20, 20, and 1 for the gender. So again, and we better go back because we need to set this as well. Let's shift that out of the way. These need to be required, so by default it says required. No, we do want it them to have to enter that, so we're going to toggle to required a yes, and allow zero length. We don't want them to allow them to enter an empty string, so we'll say no, it doesn't allow. Now you'll do that for most of those, wherever it's required. So family name, same thing, set required to yes, and set allow zero length to be no. There are other things we can do, input mask formatting and default values and things like that, but we won't do that at the moment. We'll keep it pretty simple. I think it's better to actually do most of the validation and processing within the program itself rather than the database. Swimmer gender. And you need to make sure that these names are accurate so that when we import some dummy data, it will actually work. Again, we'll have short text, but it's only going to be 1 character wide. Required is yes. Allow zero length is no. And we could have default values for that, but so we could set it to one or the other, but we won't at the moment. Just keep it really simple. I think the next one was address street, address suburb, address postcode, 124, and they're all required. So address, swimmer address street. Again, it's short text, and we had 200 for that, and it is required. So yes, it's required. There's a pain in the neck to toggle, and allow zero length is no. Right, you can go on and finish that. let's suburb. So field size is 20. Validate required is yes. So 0 length no. Required is yes. 0 length is no. Swimmer address postcode. Postcode has to, as again, we're going to use short text. We're going to use a text, not a number. And we'll set that field size to 4. Required is yes. 0 length no. Swimmer, what's the next one? Telephone, is it telephone? Date of birth, fee amount. Pardon me. Telephone. And again, that's going to be text, but we're going to set that, I think, to be 10. Required is no for this time. Allow 0 length yes, because some won't have a telephone. May not. Doesn't matter. Date of birth, capital B. We'll set this as a date, time. And for the format, we'll need to change the format this time. We're going to set it to be short date. We better make a note of that up here. Oops. Actually, a better way to do that would be day, month, year. So that's the format we use for that. Swimmer fee amount, and that's going to be, it's going to be a number. We don't need a long integer, we can just use an integer. Decimal places, we won't have any decimal places, even though it is currency. And we will set a default value. Let's set a default value of 100. Alright, and is it required? Yep, it is required. They all have to pay. Is it no, nothing else there. And swimmer fee paid. Now paid will just be a Boolean value. So in database terms, that's yes, no. Format, default value is no. Okay, and there's our table structure. So just save that, Control S. And if you switch back into the datasheet view, that's what you get. Now, you could actually enter data in manually if you wanted to, but that would be a pain in the neck. Usually what we'd have is a data form to actually enter our data, and we will do that at some stage. We'll build that in C#. You can build forms in Access, but it's a bit of a pain in the neck and a bit limited in all honesty. But what we will do is we'll actually go and import some data. Now I've put some data on the VLE there for you. So we're just going to import the data, external data. Now there's a few things you can use to import. You can use an XML file, Excel, another ODBC databases, or in even other Access files. We're just going to import an Excel spreadsheet that I've created there. So click the Excel. You'll need to download this file from the VLE. I've already got it on my desktop. I'll change the name. That's the name that it comes with. And append a copy of the records to the table swimmer details. Now, hopefully I've got all of those fields set up correctly, otherwise this won't work. If you haven't got it set up correctly, it won't work. Let's give it a go. Alright, so, okay. So I've got to close that table. Now, to give me a view of what the data is. Now, swimmer first name, these are actually the row titles or column headers on the file that you're importing. Let's do that. Alright, finish, and hopefully it works. Okay, close, and if I have a look at my table again, there's all my data. And you'll notice that it's got the auto increment number there. What we could have done is we could have entered those numbers ourselves, but there's no reason why a member number can't be that, why you can't be member number 1, it doesn't matter. And that's it. So that's cool. That's our first table done and dusted. Now, let's create another one. So, file, new, oops, sorry, I'll create a new file in this. Come back into tables, and create, there we are, create, who would have thought, table. And I think the other one we wanted to create was table swimmer data. Okay, so we're going to rename that one. So again, naming convention, TBL swimmer data. And this is going to actually hold the times for a swimmer over a particular event or distance, isn't it? So it's got swimmer ID. Well, we've already got that, but we're actually not going to create new ones. I'll show you how to link those in a second. But swimmer, freestyle, backstroke, breaststroke, butterfly, they're all going to be numeric, all field size 3. That's required, but the others aren't necessarily required because they may not have had a best time yet. So let's go toggle into the design view, and we're going to change this. We'll leave that there like that, but it actually isn't going to be, it will be a primary key because that'll be the way that we identify it, but it will come from another field. So it's not actually going to be an auto number. This one here is just going to be a number. It's just going to be a number that's going to come from the other file, right? In the case of swimmer 1, 2, or so on. So anyway, swimmer, I think I've still got it. Yeah, copy swimmer freestyle. And that was going to be a number. So let's change that to, now it will be a time, won't it? So we probably could put it as a time like that. And let's have a look at the formats and see what's available. We want to be, we don't really want a time. So let's just put it as, for the moment, let's put it as a short text. And it will be, what did we say? It's going to be field size is 3. We probably need to look at that again. So we probably need to do it like this. Minutes and seconds. So we won't go to hundredths. Should we go to hundredths of a second? Maybe. So let's do it like that. So minutes, seconds, hundredths of seconds. Anybody takes, yeah, could take a minute. So that will be 6, 7, 8. 8 characters wide. Swimmer backstroke. The one nobody can actually do. And it'll be the same thing. 8. And they're not required, so I'm not going down and editing any of the others. Breaststroke. Same thing, 8. And then finally, what's the other? Freestyle, backstroke, butterfly, yeah. Butterfly. There we go. Short text and 8. Okay, now what we have to do now, we've actually got to link these. So if we save that one, that's cool. Now we haven't got any data in that one. We're not going to pull that in. But what we will do is we've got to link these two tables together. You can see why. If I could make this into just one big table. But every time I wanted to go and enter something for a swimmer here, I'd actually have to include all of these other fields, and that would just be a prohibitive amount of typing. So I don't want to change any of this stuff. You know, if I do, it's all in one table. But this I do alter, and the way that I link them is that for swimmer 2, he'll have all of these attributes, and you'll be able to actually see what he's got in here. Now, I just noticed all the postcodes are the same. I'll show you how to edit those later so that Carlton doesn't have the same postcode as Collingwood, which would be a real bummer for a postie. Alright, so there we go. So let's save that now. We've actually got to create a relationship. So in the Create tab, and I'm looking for this because I haven't really done it in a long time. Let's go and create a relationship between the two designs. Is it in? No, it's not in there. Design. Not independent. All right, it's in design. Here we are here, the relationship. So if we click the relationship window, and we want to add both of these tables, so select them both and add them. All right, now this shows us all the fields of our table. Expand this. We should be able to. There we go. Swimmer details. And we can also see over here swimmer data. Now, both of these are keys. Now what we want to do is actually make a link between these two. We do it graphically, so we just drag that one onto there, and it says, okay, actually I should have renamed this one, not just ID, but swimmer ID. I can do that later, that's all right. So swimmer ID, we want to actually check this, enforce referential integrity. In other words, what it means is that I can't have a swimmer, an ID in here that's not in here. It doesn't make sense to have swimmer 753 with some times if he doesn't actually have a name or he's not a member of the club. So we need to make sure that anyone that's in here is in here. So I'm going to check that. We won't worry about these, but what it would mean is if I deleted a swimmer in here, it should also delete all of his records. That would be cascade delete related records and related fields, but we won't do that. So we'll just do this, create that. All right, I've got the tables open, so I've got to go and close these. So I've got to go and close that and close that. Alright, so now let's have another crack at it. Create that over here and force referential integrity and create. And now what you'll see is that it's joined a line between them and it's got one-to-one. That means that there's a one-to-one relationship. Anything that's in here has to be in there. Doesn't mean that anything that's in here has to be in there, however. Alright? But we could have a one-to-many relationship, but another story. Alright, so now if we come back into, we can actually close out of that, save that, and close out of that relationship. And I want to come back into this one here, swimmer ID, swimmer data, and I want to actually change the name of this field here. I should have actually done that to start with. You can do it later, it doesn't matter. So come into, toggle into design view again, and it should have the same name. You could see it didn't really matter, but again, naming conventions, it really should for that. So if we go back into relationships again, you'll see that it's actually changed those there. So there it is there. So that's cool. So now we've got these related. So what that means is that if we come back to all of our tables again, if I come back to these tables, if I wanted to enter something in here, if I wanted to say, okay, swimmer, I've got in here swimmer 1, let's put in here swimmer 1, and let's say that he's got some times. Let's say that his time for a freestyle is, what would it be, 00, 46 seconds, and so to 100th second. That's fine. But if I did this, if I put in swimmer, I don't know how many I have got there, but if I put in swimmer that and put in some times, hopefully it's going to not allow me to do that. So it shouldn't. No. Here it says you cannot add or change a record because a related record is required in the swimmer's detail. So it's saying this one, I can't save that because there's no swimmer with that ID. So if I saved it now, if I change that to swimmer 9, all is good. But swimmer 9, I think, drowned on that 50 metres freestyle. It took 34 minutes. So maybe we should give them a better time. There we go. Came a close second. All right, now we know if we wanted to run some queries on this a little later, we'll actually find out that we could actually get swimmer 1's time and swimmer 9's time. We could actually compare them. We could actually sort those. But there you go. So that's setting up the tables. What we'll do next is have a look at building a way to interface this through a C# form. So make sure you get that done before I see you next time. See ya.